or typically idealistic, a dreamer, or simply hopelessly naive. Alexander Wendt challenges these presumptions. The phrase you see, anarchy is what we make of it. If we define a fear-based system, it becomes self-reflective and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Our students become the next generation of leaders, convinced that the world is a dangerous place and convinced that the entire civilization is in peril. It should come as no surprise that they act accordingly. We must devise ways to overcome the fear. First, like a good psychologist, I'd suggest recognizing the problem is a good way to overcome it. Speaking honestly about the role that fear plays in our construction of identity internationally will set the stage for redressing this problem. Secondly, since the combination of race and fear is just so combustible, we must recognize racial differences and embrace them. We need a truly honest and racially aware dialogue about fear and insecurity. Rather than deny race as an identifying feature of humanity, we must be honest about it. Then, when realizing the fears that we all feel, the differentiation in fears based on race, we can promote a healing that's so needed among the races. We need to start talking honestly about race. Since humanity will provide for its own security in the absence of other actors providing it, we must strengthen the institutions we charge with the provision of security. We must promote good governance. As much as we may bemoan a state-centric world and see a loosening of it, states still possess the greatest hope for real democratization and transparency, but a recognition that democracy comes from below, not from above, and that democracy is a moving target. States are not either democratic or undemocratic. They become less or more so. And although the United Nations has not realized its potential in confronting anarchy, it exists because it's needed. We must overcome its institutional biases and historical constraints to allow it to become the institution the world needs, one that promotes security through understanding and true peace, rather than provoking fear and then seeking a balance of power to create peace as the simple absence of war. And the United Nations is only one of many institutions, both currently existing and potentially to be created in the future. Now think about this. Think about who we consider to be the greatest presidents in American history. A survey of scholars laid out their top 10. They actually rank all of them. And their top 10 are in order: Lincoln, FDR, Washington, Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, Harry Truman, Andrew Jackson, Dwight Eisenhower, and James Polk. What all 10 of these presidents share in common, other than being white men, is that they were either war presidents or war heroes. Lincoln, Roosevelt, Wilson, Truman, and Polk all led the country in war. Polk was the Mexican-American War. Or they were war heroes: Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, Eisenhower, and Andrew Jackson. Jefferson wasn't linked to war, but he wrote the Declaration of Independence, which led to the Revolutionary War. We deem our great leaders to be those who lead in warfare, and that is why President Bush reminds us he's a war president. Those who promote peace agreements, like Jimmy Carter and the Camp David Accords, are derided as naive as leaders. And on that list, I think he was number 29. Although perhaps less so as private citizens, to be sure. With a rare exception of leaders like Mohandas Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King, we have a distinct paucity of peace heroes. And we must change that if we're going to overcome this bias of fear. I also ask you, how many people died on September the 11th, 2001? And what was the most common cause of death? Most of you will say, I think the number was a little over 3,000. And I think the most common cause of death was either being crushed by a building or being burned to death. Actually, That number is over 10 times that, as 33,000 children alone died on 9/11, and the most common cause of death was malnutrition. Security is about so much more than physical security from attack, but sadly we limit our discussions of security to just the traditional forms. The human needs approach to security promotes a new dialogue about the topic and will help secure a world free from fear. We must promote a conception of interconnectedness that ensures we see all issues as human ones rather than narrow national interests. On 9/11, the French newspaper Le Monde declared, actually it was on September the 12th, that we are all Americans. There's two ways to take that headline. The first was that everyone stands with the United States. That's how the administration took the headline. The other way is we are all Americans because we are all victims of the attack. It was an attack not against the United States, but against humanity. There was a wonderful opportunity to recast national security interests to a global security that would criminalize al-Qaeda and treat it as a criminal, as an outcast, rather than militarize it and treat it almost as a quasi-state actor and wage war against it. It is an opportunity wasted. Think about the term war on terror. Have you ever thought about why is it not war on al-Qaeda, a war on terrorism? Terrorism is a strategy. It's a tactic used by weak actors. Al-Qaeda is an actor. It's a terror network, a terrorist network. Terror is what we feel that provokes extreme fear. It's almost a war on fear. How strange of a term is that? War on fear. But when you hear war on terror, it is meant to evoke an emotional response. Language itself is used as a powerful motivator of fear, and we need to change that language. This is why programs like the Culture of Peace lecture series that Silke Gakkai USA promotes is so important. Since security is completely perceptual, we choose whether or not to live in fear. Indeed, as the SGI Charter states, this organization promotes an infinite respect for the sanctity of life and all-encompassing compassion, enabling individuals to cultivate and bring forth their inherent wisdom and nurturing the creativity of the human spirit to surmount the difficulties and crises facing humankind and realize a society of peaceful and prosperous coexistence. My own Peace and Conflict Studies minor within the School of International Relations at the University of Southern California, setting aside the fact that the program is, in essence, me, and it exists in the basement, which is, we can either choose to think of it as foundational for the School of International Relations. It's all about language, right? I get a handful of students come through my classes every semester, and hopefully I get them thinking about these issues. And hopefully they pay it forward in their own scholarship. I hope that some of my students become world leaders, or at least influence world leaders. Currently, a lot of people think that current college students, they go to school for 4 years and they want to go graduate into a six-figure job. I can tell you that's not true. A good number of them are working very hard as college students, and they're graduating to try to change the world one person at a time. And this is a campaign to be waged one person at a time. It may be cliched, but it's always so poignant. That Mohandas Gandhi called upon us to be the change we wish to be in the world. And I share that vision. In that spirit, I thank you for taking this journey with me and wish you peace, good health, prosperity, and the love of one another. Thank you.